Okay, so today I want to talk about industry expertise and why it's important for your career, for your business, and especially in this modern world. When we talk about being naked in the dawn of a new age, I think things such as industry expertise actually become more and more relevant. One of the big problems that people run into when they become successful during good economic times is the fact of the matter is during good economic times, it's very easy to be financially successful and not actually be very good at much. Right? Again, companies need to hire employees. They need to put butts in seats. So if some of those butts that they put in seats aren't the most efficient, or aren't the best, or frankly may just really suck, it doesn't really matter. There's a butt in a seat. It's better to simply hire a new employee to get the job done versus figure out what's going wrong with the employee that they already have. So one of the big issues that we run into is a lot of people during good economic times become successful in spite of their actions, to be frank with you, right? They don't necessarily do the right things. They don't necessarily know the right people. They don't necessarily really grasp what is going on. But they have a good paying job and good benefits because, again, the employer, the boss, frankly, at the end of the day, needed to put a butt in a seat. They needed to hire 100 people in a month. And, sometimes those 100 people that get hired aren't necessarily the best. And so one of the big problems that we run into then is when we get massive paradigm shifts, there's a big question about what does the world actually need going forward? And this is where I would argue industry expertise actually comes in. And basically the idea with industry expertise is if you're working as a professional, you see problems that other people may not see. Again, one of the big problems with the startup world that I've seen over the years is you have a lot of 22-year-old startup founders that frankly have never worked in the enterprise, and they're trying to solve things like enterprise class problems. Like, we're gonna solve enterprise class problems. Okay, have you ever actually had a job before, much less worked in the enterprise? No. And then they're surprised. They're surprised when their startup fails and then when their product doesn't take off. And one of the big problems is that they don't actually have expertise in the field. They don't realize where the small, stupid problems lie. I think about this, again, when I try to teach things such as security in my normal computer classes. And I get a lot of like the young noobs. And the young noobs they're such sticklers. They're such sticklers about the rules of security. This is how you do cybersecurity. And it's not that I disagree with them. It is not that I disagree with them. But it's one of those issues. Like, well, yeah, but actually try to get that done in the real world. One of the stories I talk about is when I was a new support engineer. I was sent out to one of my offices, and basically I went to the office. And when I went to the office, they had the server room. The server room was basically the utility closet. So they had the server, and all their very expensive equipment sitting right beside the Clorox bleach and the mop buckets and all that kind of stuff. And so that's wrong. That is completely wrong. In the security world, that cannot stand. So I went to the manager and I said, hey, look, as your technology professional that I've been sent out here from the main office, I have to tell you that what's going on in that server room is unacceptable. You have the mop bucket in there, you have the Clorox bleach. If something happens, that could do a lot of damage to very expensive equipment. So that's going to need to change. Right. I talked to that manager like very seriously, very professionally. This is unacceptable in the security world. And then the manager looked at me and said, "Oh, okay, Eli, I understand where you're coming from. Here's the thing: we have this facility, and we need a utility closet. So currently that room is the utility closet. Eli, if you can find me another room that will work as a utility closet, I will be more than happy to move all the utility stuff out of the server room and use that other room as a utility closet. But I'm going to tell you something, Eli. I'm going to tell you something. I've been a manager here for 3 years, and I have not seen any other rooms in this building. So, if you can find me a solution to my utility closet problems, I will be more than happy to solve your server room problems." At which point I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. I'm not a facilities person." Right? And so that's one of the big problems that we run into in the real world is so many people that look at these industries and they try to solve problems. Frankly, they just don't They don't understand how it really works. Again, dealing with actual administrative assistants, dealing with actual CEOs, dealing with actual security problems, right? There's the what you read about in the books. There's what you read about in the books. And then there's, reality. So actually understanding how an industry works, how an industry operates, what the actual needs and such are, can be a very valuable thing. I think about this with some people I knew. They started up a company, and basically they started up a company purely to sell the company. And what it was they were the IT support staff for a company, and they were doing a major, like a database migration. So they're having, I don't know, it's like Microsoft Dynamics or something. Basically, they're building out this huge database system. And the thing is when they were sitting there and they were trying to pull out some reports, what they found is their company needed a specific set of reports. And the product just simply didn't give it to them. It was one of those weird things. Again, it's like again, it was a Microsoft SQL database, and so they had the Microsoft SQL database, and they had all the server replication and all that kind of stuff, and they had the front end, and they had reports. And they had a lot of reports. They had a lot of reports. They just didn't have the right reporting mechanism for exactly what they needed. And so it was very interesting. And so basically, when I met these two, what they did is they rented a little office. So one of these little shared workspaces years ago, they rented a little office. And then every night for about 2 to 3 months, they would go and they would code out everything required to create these reports. And they didn't just do it for themselves, right? When they did it, they actually built it out so that it could be a package, because they then created this whole package, this whole reporting mechanism scheme for the product that their company had purchased. They then went to the vendor of that product and said, okay, we have created all of this. Will you buy it from us? And then that company literally spent $500,000 to buy that reporting package from them. That took them about 2 months to create. And again, that's the kind of thing like industry knowledge is important, because so many people out there, they think about knowing SQL, structured query language, or they think about C#, or they think about the programming languages, and they think about the database replication, they think about the servers, and they think about the infrastructure. But so many times, what goes over people's heads is yes, but what problem are you solving? It's not valuable. Like knowing SQL isn't actually valuable unto itself. Knowing C# is not actually valuable unto itself. Being an MCSE or whatever is not really valuable unto itself. What's actually valuable is solving real needed problems. Real problems that have an actual value, right? That's what's useful. And the interesting thing is so many times when you're actually working and you're doing things, you can find problems you weren't expecting to find, right? I think that's the interesting thing. Again, when I talk about being naked in the dawn of a new age, one of the big things I want you to be thinking about is that the problems that we're going to be solving into the next decade, the issues that we're going to be having, the things that are going to become valuable, they may not be obvious on the face of it, right? It's very easy. There's a lot of things you can go out there and you can say, okay, like repairing cars is obvious on the face of it. Plumbing is obvious on the face of it. But there's other things out there, such as like Let's Play, right? Video game. Like how much money is now put into Let's Play? People literally playing video games and then having people watch those people play video games. And those people are now making a lot of money, right? Again, I've been doing videos now for 10 and a half years, almost 11 years. Literally, I've been doing videos for almost 11 years. And honestly, even for myself, I can't get my brain around why watching other people play video games is interesting. Much less how people are making millions and millions of dollars off of it. But it is, right? And so that's one of the things to be thinking about. Is like when you're actually working, when you're actually doing. And again, the important thing to be thinking about here when I talk about working, so many times when you think about work, you think about paycheck. Work, paycheck, work, paycheck, work, paycheck. But here's the thing, right? If you get unemployed, if you get laid off, if you get furloughed, you're probably not going to be getting a paycheck. And you may not be getting a paycheck anytime soon. The economy is not going to be recovering for a long time. So one of the things you need to be thinking about is dividing the concept between work and paycheck. Sometimes you work without a paycheck, right? You just work. You can create things. You can create your own. You can create your own projects. Again, if you're dealing with code, you can create your own Python projects. You can create your own JavaScript projects. You can create your own PHP or C# or whatever projects, right? You can do that for your own interest. Actually, run through, create all of this stuff. That builds up your resume. That builds up your skill set, right? If you spend a month coding your own project, that's still a month of coding a project. Right, maybe your syntax isn't perfect. Maybe your commenting system isn't perfect. But again, isn't it better to spend a month coding your own personal project and actually getting all the experience of coding your own personal project versus kind of sitting on your butt? So one of the things is when I talk about work, there's a difference between work and getting a paycheck. Sometimes you work and you don't get a paycheck. Conversely, sometimes you get a paycheck without actually working, but that's another story. But I think the important thing is you sit down and you work. And as you sit down and as you work, then you start to see what problems there are and basically what problems you may be able to solve. I think about this right now, again, with me sitting here thinking about the dawn of a new age, thinking about what the hell I'm going to be doing for the next decade. And one of the interesting things that's come up, and one of the reasons that I'm trying to bring back Fail Normal, I'm experimenting with bringing back Fail Normal, is I've been sitting here and I've been coding projects, right? So one of the things I've been thinking about is, coding's actually, enjoyable enough, interesting enough, enjoyable enough. Maybe I'll go do some code. Maybe I'll do some code. Again, maybe small, medium-sized businesses, do some coding projects, right? And so the thing is, I've been working through dealing with PHP, dealing with some of this Linux stuff. Again, solving little problems that I'm curious in. Creating little web apps, seeing how it works. One of the things that's interesting about this is, so I've been sitting here, and I've been coding, and as I sit and I code, you want something in the background. You want something to listen to in the background. And so, you get a little tired of listening to music all the time. And so the interesting thing is, popping open YouTube. So when I pop open YouTube, and you want to hear just that voice in the background, one of the things I've noticed is all the voices that I can find to put on in the background, I don't know, they're just very, how do I put it? It's very, I don't know, Tim Poolish. Tim Pool, it's the next Civil War. It's a lot of people being brah, brah, brah about very, very kind of stupid things. Like I sit here and I put on Tim Pool, and again, listening to it in the background, and it's always how it's going to be the next Civil War, and how the Democrats are stupid, and how it's like, And then I'll put on something else, and again, there's a lot of popular culture vloggers out there, and again, I'm not sure how long you can complain about the last Terminator movie. It's kind of weird. The last Terminator movie came out like almost a year ago, and people are still complaining about the last Terminator movie. And I just sit there, and I'm sitting there, and I'm doing my little coding project, and I just want to have this little thing on in the background. And then when I'm trying to listen to these things in the background, what I find is they're just so, not to be offensive, like banal in a way. They're lowest common denominator, raw, banal. And I sit there, and as I'm clipping along, I think, I don't really want to listen to this. I'm kind of tired of listening to the music all the time. But on the other hand, I really don't want to listen to this, whatever, Paul Joseph Watson. You can listen to it a little bit, but it's still like, And so that's one of the things, like I sat back and was thinking about it. As a professional sits here, tippy-tap typing away, and then as you tippy-tap type away, you just want something in the background that you can listen to that's pleasing enough, that's interesting enough, that you can pull a couple of ideas out of. And that's where I kind of sat there and was thinking about it. I was like, that's what a lot of people like to Fail Normal for before. Fail Normal wasn't packaged well enough before. So I did Fail Normal, failnormal.com for a year and a half, 2 years. Actually, it was making me money too. It was actually a part-time job, let's say. But one of the problems was it was a little bit too rambling. It was a little bit too much, a little bit not focused enough. It wasn't well packaged. It was a product that was not well packaged. But as I sit here, and I'm sitting there and doing these little projects, realizing that there's nothing that I really find interesting to listen to in the background. I think for me, that's one of those things you think about with industry expertise of, maybe this is useful. Maybe this. Maybe literally having an adult having monologues about things going on in the modern world. That's not bombastic. That's not banal. It's just, hey, as a 40 something year old, as an educated person that's traveled around the world, as somebody that's, is married, been married, is married, has had a business, these are some of the things that I point out about the modern world. Like that actually may have a significant amount of value at the end of the day. I think about that with my buddy who created a Baltimore Tech Breakfast. Ended up making a lot of money. I can't say how much money he made. He ended up making a lot of money off of Baltimore Tech Breakfast. But again, you think about industry expertise. With him, he was trying to create a startup company, but he was new to the area and he wasn't very good at user interfaces. He was really good at coding. He was a MIT graduate. He was really good at coding. He just wasn't really good at user interfaces. And so he created a little meetup back when meetups were far more popular than they became. But back in like 2011, 2012, we created this little meetup. And basically the idea was for people to come together and then talk about the user interfaces that they were creating, with the idea being that then he could learn how to create better user interfaces. Hey, I'll bring donuts or bagels or whatever. We can bring people together to discuss user interface design, and I can learn how to design a user interface better. Well, the thing was, he did it, and then more people came, and then more people came, and then more people came. And then he got his first sponsor, and then he got a second sponsor. And at one time, people were literally throwing money at him. I would be up there talking with him, and there would just be people with like $4,000 checks. Like, take my money to sponsor your event. And that all came about because he was a good coder that simply needed to better understand user interface design, UX design, UI, UX. So he created this, what he thought was going to be 10 or 15 people coming together to discuss UI, UX. That became a demo day thing that ended up going to, I don't know, like 10 cities. He was flying all over the place for a while there, bringing in a chunk of money while Meetup was popular. Again, you wouldn't think about it. We talk about the dawn of a new age. Like when Meetup was brand new, just getting people together for, donuts or bagels to talk about UI, UX, you wouldn't think that there was a metric crap ton of money in there. But right, if you're working the tech field and then you need a little bit of help, so you get some people together, you might be surprised. You might be surprised what ends up being valuable. And at the end of the day, he ended up focusing on Tech Breakfast versus his startup company. His startup company it was there, but at the end of the day, the focus was on that the meetup thing. So I think this is just something to be pondering right now. Because again, I think with especially a lot of tech professionals, a lot of young tech professionals are about to have a horrifying experience. They're about to have a horrifying, and I smile because I've been there. There are going to be a lot of tech professionals out there that thought sky was the limit. They learned a real skill set, Node.js or whatever else, right? They weren't like all those other dummies. They got a real skill set. So basically, they think they're going to have jobs forever. And what you're about to start seeing, and what we're already seeing, is layoffs. And again, the important thing to understand is it's not about one company laying off. Again, very important to get. It's not about one company. It's not about Uber laying off or LinkedIn laying off or Microsoft laying off or HP laying off. It's about all of those companies starting to lay off at the exact same time. And you're going to start to have a lot of technology professionals. They get laid off. And the issue is, right, if you got laid off, right, when Twitter got rid of a chunk of their engineering team a couple of years ago, right, if you were an engineer for Twitter, right, you already had that on your resume, you may be sad that you're getting chucked out of Twitter, but you could get a job pretty quickly. Right? Okay, if Twitter's firing you, you can get a job with Microsoft. If Microsoft fires you, you can get a job with Facebook, something like that. But again, what happens when this company's laying off? At the same time this company's laying off. At the same time, Google is going to bring on 2,000 employees, plan to bring on 2,000 employees and just cut all those ties, right? And so you're about to start having a lot of technology professionals who really haven't thought about why they had a job. They haven't really thought about why they were getting paid. I'm getting paid because I know Node.js. Knowing Node.js is very valuable. And solving problems is very valuable. If you have to solve those problems with Node.js and you know Node.js, then it's useful for people to pay you a decent amount of money to solve those problems. But that doesn't actually mean that you or Node.js or anything unto itself is valuable. It's the problem. You happen to be the key to solve the problem that was there. When that problem disappears, and another problem disappears, and another problem disappears, and another problem disappears. The good thing with problems, when one problem disappears, another problem opens, right? And that's what's happening right now. Again, in the dawn of a new age, it's not that that problems are going to disappear. We are probably going to have far more problems over the next 5 years than we previously had. But the thing is, they're going to be different problems. The problems that we were solving before, again, maybe with databases and UI and UX and this and that, the problems that we're going to be dealing with over the next 5 years, what are those going to be looking like? Where is the money going to be made with the problems? Again, like I say, when you're going into the future, how can you put yourself in the middle so that you can get your 1% off of these future transactions? I think about that like with things where when people basically buy these houses and then they don't have enough money for the houses, because they get laid off or whatever. So in different recessions, I've known people that have ended up renting out rooms for their houses. Right, so where before Facebook or something else may have been a very valuable thing, now it may be, how do you smooth the transaction for being able to find good roommates? Again, think about that. That may be a very valuable thing for a lot of people going into the next 5 years. How do you find roommates as 40-year-olds? Like a lot of us. Oh yes, I have lived in a house with 15 people. That is something that is in my history. I have lived in about every type of squalor you can want to live in. But here's the thing. That was a while ago. I mean, I did it. Oh, I did it. Don't no, I did it. But that was a long time ago. That was my 20s. That was my 20s. I'm in my 40s now. I'm in my 40s. And so if for somebody like me, like when was the last time I really had to concern myself about money, like worry about money? When was the last time I had to worry about the mortgage? When was the last time I had to worry about this type of thing? And so what you're going to have is you're going to have a lot of 40-year-olds or 50-year-olds or 60-year-olds that basically for a long time, for decades, right? As long as they kept their checkbook balanced, they were fine, right? Again, you don't go out and buy a really fancy car with a huge payment. You don't take stupid vacations, right? You spend within your means. And a lot of people that spend within their means, they bought houses within their means, and they bought cars within their means, they bought all the stuff within their means. They thought they were being very reasonable. And then when the economy blows up, all of a sudden, what was reasonable yesterday is unsustainable today. And so then people start thinking, okay, well then how can I try to keep what I have? Again, because if you have a mortgage or anything else, right, you're signed into that contract. And so the thought of, getting roommates, again, and I'm not talking about if you're in San Francisco, I'm not talking about in New York or places like that, but a lot of people in the heartland or a lot of people in the smaller cities, how many 40 and 50-year-olds, need to be thinking about roommate? Oh, well, maybe I can rent out a couple of rooms in my house to some other screwed middle-aged people. And that's the kind of thing to be thinking about, like with what your expertise is, and to look to see where your problems actually are, and then to be thinking about how would you then go about solving those problems. Like I think about this, and I may or may not do it, but like one of the big things that I see right now is that there's not a good place for people to go to for advice, for a sounding board. Right, because I think a lot of people right now, and again, think about industry expertise and then where you are in the world, right? I see a lot of professionals right now, and I talk with a lot of people, and a lot of people, like, we're in this period of tremendous change, where, and again, the people that this is going to hurt, it's going to hurt wide swath of the population, right? This isn't just the financial people, right? The last Great Recession that happened, it really hit the financial people and the people trying to make a stupid amount of money off of houses, right? It was a pretty big swath of the population, but it was one swath of the population. We look at the dot-com bust. If you look at the early 2000s, right? That was the tech industry. Those people got hurt. So in the previous recessions, a lot of things that have happened, you can look and it's a swath of the population. You can say, okay, people got too focused here. That's why it fell apart. And so it's easy to go and it's easy to talk with other people. Again, you can go to the bar, you can talk with other people, you can have conversations, and you can figure out where you should go. What is the new path to go on? You can bounce ideas off of people. Again, with the last recession, you go to the bar. Instead of buying the top shelf alcohol, you buy, the rail drinks. But you're still at the bar, you're still drinking, you still are there with a friend. And so you can sit there and you can talk and you can discuss. And you're like, okay, so what are you doing? Okay, see, this is what I did, and this is where the mistakes are. And then you can have this back and forth, and you have this back and forth with this person, you have this back and forth with this person, you have this back and forth with this person, and you have 5 or 10 backs and forths, and at some point you get an idea of what direction you should go in, and then you start moving in that direction, and hopefully it should be good. One of the things I see about, though, with what's currently going on economically and globally is that this is going to hit everybody. There's no real protected industry with what's currently going on. Again, housing's gonna get hit, transportation's already gotten hit, massive manufacturing, when you look at cars and when you look at airplanes, you look at all of that kind of stuff, that's getting hit. When you look at the tech sector, Google and Facebook are looking at I don't want to say losing, but they're going to earn at least $50 billion less this year than they were expecting to earn. But think about that. That's hitting all of these sectors. There's no real protected sector. It's not like, oh, okay, finance failed, so I can go into construction, or construction got too big, so I can go into technology. You're starting to see all of these layers being hit. And then on top of that, you're not able to go to the bar anymore, at least for most of us, right? Because, that was the thing. That was the thing, right? When everything's blowing up, back when things blew up for me back in 2000, you go to the bar. When things blew up in 2009, you go to the bar, right? You go to the bar, you sit there, you can talk with other people, you can see what's going on. But you think about it, in this modern world, we're all supposed to be sitting at home. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. Like, you are literally supposed to sit in the house and only do what is necessary. And so I think one of the big problems is not only do we have all these issues going on, the dawn of a new age, but then how do we have any conversations about where our place in this new age is, right? Okay, I've got this skill and I've got this experience and I've got these resources. How do I duct tape that together into something that's useful to somebody, right? Like, again, and normally you just go to the bar or cafe or whatever, you talk with people, but you can't do that right now. So again, like, one of the things that I'm thinking is bringing back my Silicon discourse. So I did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, 300. I did 300, Skype consultations back in the day. I decided not to do it anymore because then it didn't seem so necessary. But one of the things I'm thinking about now, again, when I sit there and I talk with my friends, when I talk with people in the business community, when I see that lack of communication, that lack of people just simply being able to bounce ideas of another intelligent human being. Again, you think about, like, what's weirdly valuable, and again, what you would not think of as valuable. But just think as a business person or as an entrepreneur. Think about how valuable it is just to bounce ideas off of another intelligent human being, right? That may sound stupid, right? Again, if you've never actually been an entrepreneur, or if you've never actually been a professional, just simply just bouncing the ideas off of another human being and have that other human being say, "Oh, that sounds good. I wouldn't do that. Oh, I see why you think that sounds good, but I know somebody who actually tried that before, and why that's a dumb idea is, and you think that's a bad idea, But I know some people that actually made a couple of bucks off of that, right? The ability just to sit there and have that kind of conversation. Again, it's one of those things that I'm sitting here, dawn of a new age, and like what is actually valuable for me? And again, that's what I look at. Like, what is actually valuable that I can offer that you don't see the niche being fulfilled by the rest of the world. Again, you see life coaches, you see therapists, you see all that kind of stuff. I don't want to be your therapist. I'm not your therapist. I'm not your therapist. But like, right? If you're having professional adult, like, I'm not sure what the best move is here. Sitting here and actually having a conversation with somebody. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about. That's one of the reasons why I'm pushing forward, moving with Fail Normal. And I'm thinking, like I said, for me, I'm thinking about those consultations because I did them in the past. And the problem that I found when I did them in the past was I was talking just with tech people that wanted to move their career ahead. And one of the things I found is that, again, being successful in technology in a lot of ways, for a lot of like new people, is just going out there and working. Get your first certification, go out, get a help desk job, move up, ask your boss what to do, right? Very simple things. And so after a while, again, it just gets into mommy daddy issues, like just go out and do it. But one of the things I'm thinking about with this is, again, talking with other, like, how many adults are out there? Again, not even the kids, any of our kids, but like how many people just are, you're just sitting there thinking, what do you do in this situation? Where is the best place to put your $1,000? If you have $3,000 left, I mean, think about that. If you have $3,000 left, you can use the $3,000 to move somewhere. You can use the $3,000 to get a certification. You can use the $3,000 for something else. And just to be sitting there and thinking, like, okay, where's the best place to allocate these resources? And just simply being able to bounce that off of another human being. Things that I'm thinking about. These are things that I'm thinking about in this very, very cold new age. I don't know. It's a weird world. I'm worried about what's coming. And I have to tell you, the reason that I'm most worried about what's coming is because the stock market is not doing worse. Stock market right now, the S&P 500 is within spitting distance of literal all-time highs, right? So back in February, mid-February, S&P 500 got up to all-time highs. And then by mid-March, it had dropped by about a third. And I would argue that was not far enough. I would argue when it dropped by a third, that was not far enough. But for some reason since then, it went from like 3,300 down to 2,400 or something, and now it's back up to 3,200. It is literally, the S&P 500 right now is literally within spitting distance of all-time highs when our official unemployment rate is 13 to 14%. That's just the official, which is probably crap to begin with. That doesn't include all the people that are still getting paid by companies where there aren't really jobs. So basically, the company gave forgivable loans to all of these corporations as long as they keep employees until September. And so you've had Delta, you've had Southwest, you've had so many companies come out, and they're literally asking their employees to leave, like 12 to 15,000. It's like Delta's getting rid of like 12,000 employees, Southwest is getting rid of like 15,000 employees. You have that going on. Again, Airbus and Boeing are doing layoffs. Boeing now apparently just has parking lots of jets. Right? There's all these jets. They produced all these jets, and they were supposed to produce the jets, and they were supposed to hand them off to Delta and Southwest and all that. And now these jets have been produced, but they can't hand them off to the airlines because the airlines don't need the jets right now. And so now you're getting a backlog in jets. You have countries they're bordered. Again, in the United States, we can't go to Canada. Canadians can't come here. Like, we're not able to go to Europe. The UK literally just put back quarantine rules for people going to Spain. So they had relaxed the quarantine rules for people going to Spain, and then overnight they put the quarantine rules back into effect. So you have all of this stuff going on. And the S&P 500 is within spitting distance of its all-time highs. Does that make a damn bit of sense to you? Honestly right now, if the S&P 500 was at 50% of what it was in February, I'd still be a little nervous. I'd still be like, I don't really feel comfortable with that, but okay, with Fed policy and all that, maybe a 50% loss since February. Maybe I can get my brain around that. But to have the S&P 500 back to be within spitting distance of all-time highs when everything else is going on, and we still do not have a cure for COVID. We still do not have a vaccine for COVID. None of us have a solution. Again, like Spain. Spain, they seem to have gotten coronavirus under control, and now they're having major outbreaks again. So we don't have a vaccine. We don't have a cure. We have pretty piss poor plans. Right now, it's really who has the best of not great plans is basically what's happening. And yet the stock market is just roaring along. That makes me feel nervous as hell. So something to be thinking about there, something to be pondering, like looking at that in the modern world is where is the actual opportunity? Where is the value? And I would argue you can figure out the opportunity, you can figure out the value by actually doing work, by actually being with people as much as you can, doing as much of the type of work as possible as you can. Because again, it's kind of like that simple thing. It's that simple thing. Again, with me sitting there, and I'll just be sitting there doing a few hours of code. So just tippy tap typing away. Okay, tippy tap, tippy tap, tippy tap, tippy tap, tippy tap, tippy tap. And all I want in the background is something that I can listen to that's not talking about American Civil War #2, or the umpteenth reiteration that the last Terminator sucks. Again, I'm impressed by those people. Those people are some people that impress me, because I have no idea how you say that much about one crappy movie. So anyways, that's what I'm finding in the real world. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens at the end of the day, because I don't know. What all this is going to look like in 5 years is going to be a hell of a lot different. It's going to be a hell of a lot. Because, yeah, you just see, I don't know, I could start rambling, but there's so much overinvestment. Like one of the interesting things, like with retail. So a lot of people right now are worried about the death of retail because with COVID and all that. But one of the big issues that was going on before is that retail storefronts were actually already overinvested in. That's one thing a lot of people don't talk about. So there was this whole idea that Amazon was killing Main Street retail. And if you actually take a look at it, one of the bigger problems is that we have too much Main Street retail. Again, right? The death of, what causes the death of the thing? And essentially, because interest rates have been so low on bonds, you have investors that have been looking for other safe assets to invest into. And so what they decided in a group is that commercial real estate was a place to invest. So basically, after the last recession, after the Great Recession, the amount you could make off of interest off of bonds came down, and it became very, 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 very low. And so basically you have a lot of investors, and what they want is they want a safe asset class. So that's what bonds are considered. Bonds are considered a very safe asset class with a low, and they've always had a low, essentially, interest rate on them. Well, after the recession, the interest rate on them became so low, it's almost like you're losing money by having too much money in bonds. And so a lot of investors were trying to figure out where could they put their money, where could they invest their money that was as safe as bonds, but with a little bit better return. And the concept is that commercial real estate is the place to put that money. And so one of the things, like if you look around our area, we have so much commercial real estate going up. So much. We have entire brand new strip malls that are empty. Again, in our area, and they've been empty for a while. And the reason is because people didn't actually need that much store frontage, right? There was not actually enough demand for that much retail space. But it was built because there was the idea that it was a safe asset class. And so one of the interesting things to be thinking about what's going to be happening is not only is Amazon eating at normal retail, not only is coronavirus and everything that goes along with that eating at normal retail, but then there was also just on the face of it, there was too much retail space that was basically built over the past decade. And so it's let me think about, again, going into the next 5 years, even if there is a cure for COVID, even if there's a vaccine for COVID, that doesn't mean retail is going to be able to come back like it was before. Because even before, there were issues with the industry. So anyways, I could start rambling about that, but I've been talking a little bit too long anyway. So there you go. Some things to think about. Some things to think about in the modern world. And the one big thing that I would tell you is whatever you do, just don't stop working. Again, as somebody who's been po, as somebody who has been po, remember, there is no dishonor. There is no shame in not earning money. There's no shame in being poor. I would argue there is a world of shame in not working. Right? If you are not working, if you are not making yourself better, if you are not providing something to the world that the world finds valuable, I think that is where there's a world of shame in, because that's what really gives you your place, right? That gives you your place. Like when you say like, yeah, that the world should do something, that you should, like, what are you doing for other people? Right? There are people now that are going hungry. There are people now that are worried about their mortgages. There are people now that need childcare. There are people now again, the problems did not stop. It's the money that stopped. And so what I'd argue is if you go out and you do whatever work that you can, again, whether it's creating educational classes, whether it's going to food pantries and handing out food, whether it's, helping your neighbors. How many of your neighbors, now can no longer afford lawn services? And so maybe, helping out neighbors doing things. By actually going out there, you can figure out what problems there are. And then you can also figure out where people are willing to pay for things in places that you may not actually expect. And go from there. So anywho, with that, I'm going to go off. I'm going to do an educational video today. I'm going to go do an educational video. I'll see you all the next video.